Dr. Lisa Cameron MP, you're elected in 2015 as a Scottish Nationalist MP. You were re-elected in 2017 for the SNP and in 2019. Last month, you left the SNP and you now sit as a Conservative MP. The first time that's ever happened, SNP to Conservative. Can you believe you're a Tory MP? How did it happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a number of both sort of push and pull factors, I would call them. Pull factors, definitely, when I was struggling, the Prime Minister was very kind and reached out to me to find out how I was doing. A lot of the cross-party work I've done in the past has meant that I've built very good connections and friendships with people right across all of the parties, including Conservative Party. I mean, originally I come from a Conservative home, so that in some sense is also very natural to me. So my parents Conservatives. And in terms of the move from Scottish National Party, there were issues in terms of disagreements I had with the way they handled an abuse case against a member of staff, and I chose to support the victim in that case in terms of reaching out to them, and also raised that I felt we should have a victim-led approach, and I really felt very let down that wasn't the case in terms of what happened, and that people had been directed to support the perpetrator in that case, and that the victim eventually had to leave his job and didn't feel able to return. So, yeah.
Did joining the Labour Party ever cross your mind?
No, as I say, I mean, I grew up in a Conservative family background, so that appeared more natural to me. And I do think now that in Scotland, people are feeling possibly that nationalism has become a bit of a failed experiment. You know, the health service is really struggling, education, transport, there's been a ferry debacle and lots of different issues in terms of, well, this week alone we've had a scandal with an iPad, so a number of different scandals. So I think people are sort of reverting back to perhaps where they were before 2014, before the referendum. Perhaps if you're right of centre or left of centre, that the polls are suggesting that people will move back in those directions. And therefore, I think, in some ways my journey is one that has been a first in the Parliament, but I think in terms of the population of Scotland, it's probably going to be quite ordinary at the next election.
Now, you're married, you've got 2 daughters. When you defected, when you left the SNP, you were subject to threats, to abuse, so severe that you had to move out of the family home and go into hiding, really, as a family. Are you back in your home?
Yeah, we are back in our home now. Parliament and local police and the parliamentary security services have been amazing, I have to say. We've had a number of risk management procedures put in place for myself, for my family and for staff. We've had to have our home sort of reinforced in a sense. They put a very strong steel door on my house, which I can hardly, even imagine that I have this door. I mean, it's reinforced steel. It looks nice, but I've had to have new window panes put in, that kind of thing. So it's been really very shocking that politics in Scotland could sink to those depths, to be honest, and appear so divided and toxic.
Are you scared? Have you been scared during this period?
I think you're always scared as a mother for your children, and that's my main concern, is my family and my children and my staff. And so the sort of key thing for me was making sure that we were all in a place of safety, and that's why we moved for the period of time under advice, and also the office and the constituency closed until the appropriate risk management features could be put in place to protect my staff. So I think given everything I've been through, I'm quite resilient in the fact that I feel it's important that people who are basically bullies are not going to win in this scenario. And therefore those making threats are not going to stop me doing my job every day in the Parliament and in the constituency.
What happened to you, what you went through, resulted in a deterioration in your mental health. You were having panic attacks in the latter days that you were still in SNP MP. You were prescribed antidepressants. You had counselling. Have the panic attacks gone? Are you still on antidepressants? Are you still in need of counselling?
I'm feeling much more confident in myself. I think that does take time to build back. I mean, for a long time in the Parliament, I didn't speak as much as I used to speak as well. So I could see changes in my behaviour as well. And obviously I had to have 12 months plus of counselling from the welfare services
12 months.
there.
For 12 months, the last 12 months that you were in the SNP, you were having counselling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went from being like the first psychologist to be elected to the Parliament to, being effectively a patient in that sense. And, mental health is always something that I've raised awareness of and advocated. So I'm not embarrassed by that. I think if people need help, they need to go and get help. And that's why when I saw at an early stage that I wasn't coping and that I felt very shunned and bullied by parliamentary colleagues, that it was vital for me to reach out and get that support at Westminster, because otherwise you can feel very much on your own and isolated. I've got a good staff group there who were very supportive, who knew what was happening. Obviously, I went to my doctor, as you said, for medication. And I think the final straw for me was really when my GP said to me, Lisa, we can give you, medication and it will take an edge off the way you're feeling. But the issue is your environment, and you have to change your environment. And that was really when sort of the penny dropped, and I thought, I can't continue in this way. Yeah.
Have you found it easy to make friends in the Conservative Party?
I think because of the work I do, I chair the disability group in the Parliament, and I have done since 2015. And I also did Lucy's Law through the Parliament as well, which was very cross-party. I've always really had a lot of connections across party. And those were the people who reached out to me, and many actually after my move had contacted me again to say we could see what was happening, and we're glad you're here and we're going to support you. And actually it's actually been very disconcerting to all of a sudden have so much support all at once, really from the top down, from the Prime Minister's office right across the whole of the party.
Now, at the moment, a number of my former colleagues in the Labour Party, I'm sure in other parties too, the threats and abuse that many of my friends are being subject to because of what's happening in Israel and Gaza, protests outside the constituency office, really quite offensive emails being sent, in some cases protests outside MP's house, because it's very different circumstances, but because you have been through that sort of venom, really. And by the way, just for the record, there's nothing wrong with legitimate protest, but it's when people feel intimidated because of it. Do you have any advice for any MPs who are coming under pressure now and feeling threatened and scared?
I think, obviously the Speaker's done a huge amount in terms of improving the services that are available for MPs. So the welfare service has been excellent. But what I would say is don't ever underestimate any risks. So if you feel that something's untoward, if someone has sent a message, then please do get that checked out, because where people are being threatening and intimidating to others, you just never know who is the person who's sending a message and who is the person who's going to act on that message. And the experts in Parliament and the local police have certainly been fantastic in my case in being very proactive and helping me to put in, really quite robust risk management processes. I don't think you can ever entirely eliminate risk, which is the sad thing. And obviously we've lost very dear colleagues across party, Joe Cox and Sir David Amos. But in learning from those traumas, I think, it's very, very important that we just don't ever feel we're bothering services. Contact them, make sure they are aware of every potential risk, and then they can make the assessment and tell you what you need to do to protect staff, to protect those dear to you and your family. Final question. You are a Christian. Your faith
has led you to take certain positions on issues like abortion, where you have come into conflicts when you were in the SNP. More broadly, can God and politics, God, being faithful to God and becoming a member of Parliament, is there conflict there?
I think it's really important that people from all different faith backgrounds have a place in Parliament, and that anyone who would suggest because you're from a particular faith you don't have a place in Parliament, I think that's wrong. I think many of these votes are votes of conscience, and it's very important that we maintain that. But actually, being a Christian is very important to me, and it's, what's grounded me throughout my life, and therefore it's an integral part of myself, and I don't think it would be authentic to give up those things to be an MP. So I think that, actually Parliament should be inclusive of all race and religions, and that's the kind of society that we want to see moving forward.
Dr. Lisa Cameron, you've given hardly any interviews since you decided to make the change. I'm very grateful for you talking to me today. Lisa Cameron, thank you.
Thank you so much.